And we're live. And I received a Blue Sky message from a woman privileged to call herself Yuki on Blue Sky, who normally communicates with me about her fervent desire that Catherine Rampell, the economics columnist, would run for president. Yuki is in Japan. And she notes that when I announce the date and time, I sound like a robotic 13th century monk, and that I make no reference to the meridian, for those who were, as she puts it, geographically challenged. And so I am shifting gears this morning. Let it not be said that I am not responsive to audience feedback. It is Friday in Washington, D.C., understanding that on the other side of the international date line, it may already be Saturday or Friday evening for, I can't. Here, it is Friday. It is the 19th day of September. Again, I'm speaking about here. I don't know about in Kiribati or in New Zealand. I think it's still Friday. It is 8:01 a.m., and that again refers to Eastern Standard Time in the United States of America. Understanding that it may be different, I tried to convert the whole world to Universal Time. I would totally use, uh, you know, Japan time as the universal time. I'm agnostic. I believe in universal time. I don't think it really caught on. I mean, let's be honest. Everybody made fun of me about it. Um, it is the year of our Lord, 2025. Still, we are not yet through the first year of America under occupation. It is 9:01 p.m. in Japan, Yuki. Um, and look, folks, this month is the 15th anniversary of Lawfare, and I am aware that there is other stuff going on in the world. So, you know, but I'm just taking one day to celebrate the improbable success of this crazy little project that I started with two friends 15 years ago this month, and was the alligator that bit me in the ass and has not let go. Uh, More than baby cannons, more than dog shirts, more than projectors. This is more than live streaming at 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning in Japan. This is actually, day to day, day in, day out, how I spend my time. And I just want to say a word of thanks to everybody who's been involved in that project in so many different ways. And I was trying to think last night of all the different ways that people have been involved in the project. And there are people who, have written countless articles, the vast majority of them uncompensated, except in the sense of, you know, putting stuff out there in the world and getting feedback from a community. Uh, and there are a lot of those people. I have never done an author count on Lawfare, but it is an extraordinary number of people now who have written for Lawfare, some of them over and over and over again. Um, and um, there's a second group of people, uh, most of them mostly invisible, which is the group of people who have edited Lawfare over time. And some of them have also been prominent writers for Lawfare, like Susan Hennessy or Quinta Jurecic, but some of them have not. Some of them don't fashion themselves as writers. They are just people who keep the place moving. And some of them write in one area but edit in 1,000 areas. And there are the people who do podcast editing for us, some of whom work for us and some of whom work for Goat Rodeo. There's the whole Goat Rodeo team, starting with the very estimable Ian Enright, who has been kind of my podcast imagination partner from, I guess, from 2018 on. Um, and then there are, people who show up one day and just start doing a thing. I'm thinking of Roger Parloff and Anna Bauer, who just, in different ways kind of showed up and started covering trials and hearings. And some of it is kind of my idea in some ways. There's a funny origin story about how Roger came to write for the site, which is that he approached me one day and said he was, not quite ready to retire, but wondered, he'd admired the site. He'd written for us once, and Roger and I go, not personally, but professionally, we go way, way back because he was a features writer at American Lawyer, which was the parent entity of Legal Times when I was a cub reporter there back in the early 90s. And so I've been an admirer of Rogers for a long time. And he came to me and said, I'm not really ready to retire yet. Do you need anybody to do surge editing? And this is like being approached by, Muhammad Ali and asked whether you need a sparring partner or something. It's a frankly ridiculous question. Roger is a very great features writer. And I tried to swallow my incredulity, and I said something to him like, Roger, I don't want you to do surge editing for us. I want you to go. And the sentence just came out of my mouth as I was thinking it. I want you to go cover the January 6th trials for us. And that was the beginning of Roger's relationship with Lawfare, which has been going on continuously ever since. So there are these people like Roger and Anna who just kind of show up and start doing things. And those are some of the most amazing people that we have. Uh, And then there are the people who, uh, from the outside, who contribute to the site um, with writing. Some members of this audience, Antti Ruokonen, for example, has written for the site. Um, and then there are people who just support the site by sharing it on social media, by sending us small or large financial contributions. And so I was thinking last night in a just a very contemplative moment, how diverse this set of people are who make meaningful contributions to Lawfare, from writing fabulous stuff to sending a few dollars to just about everything in between. I mean, Scott Shapiro, I joke about him a lot on the show, but Scott Shapiro showed up one day and taught an entire class uh, on hacking with his colleague Sean O'Brien. Um, and so I just, nothing complicated here. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has made a contribution of whatever type, of whatever size, of whatever, um, uh, at whatever point along those 15 years, back when we were thought of as a, I don't know, a right-wing pro executive power site, or now when some, I don't know which publication referred to us as a radical left publication. Uh, at any point along the way, for whatever reason, in whatever fashion, um, including, by the way, reading it. You know, a publication is really a tree that falls in the forest and nobody hears if nobody bothers to read it. And one of the cool things about Lawfare, which I never expected, by the way, the most shocking thing to me about Lawfare is that it has, when the first month of it, um, when we started it and it reached, I don't know, about 20,000 people, I was shocked. You know, now we reach about a half a million people a month, on us on an average. Sometimes it goes much higher than that. And that's just the written material. The podcast material is much higher than that. And I remain kind of shocked that there are that many people who want to. I still find the 20,000 number to be semi-shocking, that there are 20,000 people who want to read the kind of technical work that we do, let alone, you know, half a million, or sometimes, you know, 1.5 million people. And so, whatever the nature of your contribution to Lawfare is, if you're an in lieu of fun slash dog shirt TV consumer, you have probably had some interactions with Lawfare over the years, and I just want to say thanks. It's nothing complicated. It's nothing. There's no secret agenda. There's no. I'm not. You know. There's no ask at the end of this. Uh, so, thank you to everybody who has played a role in this. It's been a wild ride, and I am looking forward to the next 15 years, hopefully, which will not necessarily involve, you know, the same level of crisis to our democratic society as the more recent half of the past 15 years have. But if it does, okay, bring it on. Um, and, you know, I look outside and the sun is shining and the birds are chirping. And I am convinced that despite everything, despite the fact that the motherfuckers keep motherfucking, it is going to be a great fucking day. And oh, wait, let me, since Holly is not with us today. Oh, wrong thing. You you are watching Dog Shirt TV, and it is a goddamn revolution in morning television. It is also, yeah, yeah, you know, John Hawkinson is right. It is birthday, so we're also going to get the happy birthday today. We're watching Dog. All of which is a long way of saying that, you know, we're not allowed to have fun anymore. but sometimes, God damn it, we do it anyway. All right, as you can see, I am alone today, having been abandoned by everybody on Lawfare's birthday. You know, it is what it is. So step up, be the one. I don't think today is the day we're going to get to 40, but the floors are open, and uh, and Jeff says that rendition of Happy Birthday may get this episode blocked on YouTube, and I'm curious why that would be. But you know, Carol, John Hawkinson, Kate, this is the time that you should pop up on screen because you know, it's only 8:16 and right now there's going to be a lull until somebody shows up. This is the lull happening. If you're starting to feel a little bit guilty, that's the stress of the lull. And here is Carol. Notice the lull did not have to be long. Oh, and who is that?
Her name is Lady. Ladybug, but we call her Lady for short.
Good to meet you, lady.
She has
Um,
been demanding belly rubs since I woke up. Some days she
I
gets more than others. So,
I can be I am totally sympathetic to that. I have often woken up and demanded belly rubs. What is on your mind this morning?
not a lot. I just felt sorry for you.
Oh, you were
Motivated
just
by compassion, yes.
motivated by compassion, just responding to the pressure of the lull.
Part of my problem is the things I've been thinking about really belong with the book talk, the book club things.
Well, we can presage the book club stuff. What are you thinking of in relation to the book club?
Well, one of the things that what Holly said about Addie LaRue surprised me a little bit because I don't see that there's a lot of time spent making the point that she just lives for, 300 years and people forget her because she's constantly negotiating ways to maintain relationships, right? She starts going back, what she's doing, it seems to me, is it goes back and it covers a lot of the ways he's been figuring out to cope with it. It sets up the problems. But there's also the whole dance of wills between her and the darkness.
Yes, I agree with you both. I think there's uh the first half is a little bit heavy-handed with pounding you that she's um that she uh engages people and then is forgotten, and this has been going on for a long time. On the other hand, I do think there clearly is a development um, that is going on at first imperceptibly,
Right. It
and
starts out
then
subtly,
it starts out subtly, and then of course
and then
by
it
the
snowballs.
end you realize that she's a muse, which is the way she describes herself, and I think it's on the whole quite elegantly done. I don't, you know, when you're a editor professionally, as I am, and Holly kind of is, you are always looking for what is not wholly necessary.
Especially
Um,
when you're used to writing for things like newspapers or, position, whatever the kinds of informational things that Holly was, it's a very
Well,
different.
Holly's stuff, that is an extreme version of it, which is, briefings
Right, right. I mean, you
The
really touch on
ultimate the ultimate expression of what they do is the PDB, where if you imagine like so leave aside the how do you brief Trump, because that's a special
right,
problem
right,
that
right.
sounds in psychology, not in but how do you
Videos,
brief
I
some
think there would be helpful.
yeah, I mean that's an abnormal psych problem, not a briefing problem, but a briefer, particularly one who works on areas that are not central to the public consciousness. Um, you're competing for, you know, some tiny, tiny fraction of Barack Obama or George W. Bush or Joe Biden's brain space, and you've got to make them think about Chad or Kenyan riots or something, and you've got a very limited space in which to actually say what's happening, why it's important, what the option sets are, what the implications are. And that's a really, really hard thing. And so it does affect the way you read, which is if something is
I'm
not
sure.
strictly necessary, it is strictly unnecessary. And once you've learned to read that way, or for example, learn to talk that way. I mean, I'm speaking now in a very careful way, which I actually always do when a camera is on me. It's a studied effort to make it look unstudied. But you'll notice I'm not using filler words. I'm not pausing really. And when I pause, by the way, it's almost always intentional and for effect. It makes it look very natural, but it's really there in a studied kind of way. And when you write like that or when you talk like that and you really train yourself to do it, you really, really notice when other people are and aren't doing it well. And I think that's part of what's going on with Holly reading that book. I noticed the same thing in different ways, like the obsessive attention to New York in ways that I found extraneous and silly. But as we will talk about next week, I really admired the book in important ways, and I thought it's a book I never would have read other than for it being Alicia's um, fiction contribution to this discussion. And so I uh, had no idea what it was when I picked it up, and I was quite delighted to have read it.
Also, I think, my background being, well, first of all, I'm a much more casual reader, and indeed, I like 19th century novels, which just go on and on and on and on and on. Um, I'm sure you would have a fun time editing Dickens down to 3 paragraphs of,
Although I want to say about Dickens, Dickens is a superb prose stylist.
oh, I
And
think
so
he's wonderful.
he gets away with all kinds of stuff and tangents because and tangents and detours and stuff because he's so charming to read. And if you can get away with that and write a story that is kind of reads like My Dinner with Andre sounds or something, you can get away with, like, if you're really great, you can get away with all kinds of things. But that only works at a talent level beyond that of ordinary mortals.
The other thing is, when you write history, a lot of the time you have to really pound things into the ground because because you need to take people through the entire process of your thought,
Right.
right? And so it's a very different way of writing. I'm really looking forward to Alicia's thing. I did have one thought that I'm really not at all sure about that I wanted to run past her, but thinking about information systems, and I was thinking about the Russian, what they call them, active measures, was that it?
Hmm.
The infiltration and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I was thinking how that might work as an invasive species.
Oh, that's interesting. So save that thought for the book club, which is, by the way, next
Coming
week.
up, yes.
Yes, it is, I believe. I don't want to provide misinformation about a discussion of information ecosystems, but I believe it is on the 25th, which, if is serves is Thursday. The books are Alicia's new book, which is available, The Information Animal, and V.E. Schwab's novel, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. That'll be 1 week from now, although not technically a week from now, because it'll be Thursday, whereas we're on Friday, if you're in the United States. And it's still Friday in Japan, Yuki. But it won't be by the time you see this. So it's going to be Saturday by the time you see this. So, you know, look, if anybody wants to join me in Universal Time, uh, I'm game. I've been proposing this for years. Airplanes, no time difference when you fly between countries, no time zones all over the world, no international dateline. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, the universal time. But since nobody wants to join me, um, uh, we're gonna have to, uh, have conversations like this a lot.
Well, I think, well, tangentially, my sister is in England right now, and I know that she's planning on staying up late in order to be part of the book club talk
Well, that's awesome. Um, you
because
know,
it'll be like midnight there.
yeah, I am trying to think of ways to make um, Dog Shirt TV, to make the Greek chorus experience accessible to more people in more different time zones. It is kind of hard given the day job situation. I literally do this while I'm drinking my morning coffee. I occasionally roll out of bed 15 minutes before this, and my normal schedule is that I get Dog Shirt Daily out either shortly before or shortly after this, and then I have my morning editorial meeting at 9:30. So there's a kind of a brief window between Dog Shirt TV and when I start my actual day. And so there's not that many windows in which I could do this during the day without significant disruption to other professional activity that I owe to, whether it's Lawfare or Brookings or, some other activity that I'm involved with. And so I'm relatively resigned to the idea that if you're not in the Eastern time zone, or in Europe. I mean, this time is reasonably good for a lot of Europeans, although it does mess up the um, it messes up the it conflicts with professional stuff in the afternoon. But for people who can turn on a show in their backgrounds while working, it works reasonably well. But it's terrible for the West Coasters, many of whom were wonderful participants in lieu of fun, and I do feel bad about that. And so, I've been thinking about ways to ameliorate that, and one of them is to do the book clubs in the evening. Another one is to, periodically just say, hey, tomorrow's show is going to be at 7 p.m. instead of, and I will probably do that a little bit more in October when uh, um, professional travel will have my wife out of town a fair bit. So my schedule is, there's less coordination about dinner and that sort of thing. But it's actually a tricky little business. And, if I were doing this professionally, which I sort of am, but sort of am not, you clear space for it and but if you, uh, but if you're not, if it's sort of something that you're doing with, in this case, 28 of your closest friends, and we're trying to get that number up to 40 people, but right now it's 28 of my closest friends, then it kind of works around schedule. And so it's a tricky business. And I would also love to find a time that, the very estimable Kate Clonic could join. This is a time where she is having, this is a time that's very difficult for her and impossible for Scott Shapiro. And so, and difficult for GDF. It's not a great time for anybody except the people who, there's a reason why certain people show up and certain people don't. And it's not that, it's not that it's an ideal time for everybody and some are more eager than others.
You also have a problem in that, you really do have people who are interested really all over the world through every time zone.
Right.
Um, and my sister, I'm sure, is not the only one that usually she's in Queensland. And so DSTV is a little late for her, but the 7 o'clock book club would be perfect. But she's on vacation and she's in England, so it's the other way around.
Right. So, the flipping around stuff and doing it at different times is one solution to that. Look, the other solution is that every single episode is on two podcast feeds and on YouTube, and the vast majority of people who consume this material do it through. I mean, there's two video feeds, one on Substack and one on YouTube, and that's, I don't know, about 500 to 1,000 people a day watch the average episode in one form or another. And then there's the two podcast feeds, and that's probably another 1,500 or so. So, the vast majority of people aren't consuming it live, and that's fine. It's designed to be consumable in whatever format people find compelling. And I think for some people, a big part of it is the chat,
I was going to say
which,
for some of it, my sister, again, she here's the other cat. Um, um, she also watches it, when she can't see it live, but she misses the chat.
yeah, I think for those who've never been part of the chat, what we call the Greek chorus, or as others call it, the collegium, um, it really is a special group of people, and there's a reason why periodically somebody like Fred shows up on screen, and I just, we all know each other at this point, and this is not because we were friends or anything before this started. This is a community that has grown up organically, first around In Lieu of Fun, and
And of course,
then
really, you have no reason to meet me in person because I can't imagine what I could do for you.
but that is so false. I mean, we have had in-person gatherings, and they have been semi-spectacular. And it's a genuine organic community that has grown up around this, and that is a deeper level of engagement than is possible to have with a YouTube show or with a um, or with a um, uh, or with a podcast audio. On the other hand, look, that's the sort of molten core, and the audio version, which is available to everybody, gives you a window into that, or the YouTube version gives you a window into that, but is accessible to dramatically more people, and is, of course, free. And I'm very committed to keeping it free because I do think the value here, the essential value proposition of Dog Shirt TV, um, which is, frankly, remains an experiment, is um, what if you styled as morning television something that was, number one, did not take itself seriously, number two, was nonetheless pretty relentlessly serious in the quality of the content that it produced, though it jokes around and engages in what Ev and I like to call inanities. When we have a conversation about Tokugawa Japan, it is not a inane conversation about Tokugawa Japan. When we have a conversation, as we did yesterday, about Belarus, it is something that you cannot get elsewhere, right? And
Right.
so the idea of combining not taking yourself seriously with relentless seriousness is I think, a really interesting idea. Number three, that we're not focused on production values. We work on them as we can. The quality of the production values are higher than they were a few years ago, but they're not uh, we're not spending any money or real energy on anything but content. And then the fourth and final ingredient is people whom you can't hear from elsewhere. So, we have a genuine interagency process going on a daily basis between Holly and Mike Feinberg. We have um, genuine expertise on all kinds of areas from people who, it's not like MSNBC or CNN couldn't call Holly and have her on, but they won't. And it's not like this stuff is unavailable to people who are, but if you're obsessed with ratings and clicks, you don't get to do that. And by the way, if you think of the viewership as a passive exercise rather than an active exercise, you don't get to have a conversation about Tokugawa Japan. You don't get to supplement your interagency process with somebody of the quality of Kate. That's the other Kate, Greek chorus Kate, as opposed to Kate Sinatra, as opposed to Kate Klonick. And so I want, that's an experimental thing. And if, the number is 30 that are going to show up every day, that's fine. I want to grow that number organically without defacing the idea as high as it can go. And the fundamental experiment of it is, what is the daily market audience for something like this, both in dollar terms, can you actually have a business based on this? Or, and in, mind share terms. So that's the thought. Fred,
Hey,
front of a
Ben.
Mondrian. What is on your mind this morning?
A couple of things. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, loud and clear.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Well, I mean, first of all, I'm sure you'll get a lot of this tonight, but I wanted to say thank you for 15 years of Lawfare from me personally. And I mean, I feel, on behalf of the Greek chorus here, um, this is a tough time, Ben, in the country, and now more than ever, I feel confident saying that, you know, uh, contact of this kind with like-minded people, um, is really well, a diverse group of people who share the values that have sustained us for 250 years, is really, really just sort of precious and becomes more precious every frickin' day. And I mean, part of what I like about this forum is at a time when so much of the internet is just going to hell and is just sort of the worst of humanity. This forum kind of reminds me of the best bright shiny promise of what the internet sort of used to be. um, and It's kind of a case study in how an online community does not get enshittified. And I'm kind of amazed at how sustainable, small but sustainable this community has been. Substantively, I'm kind of interested in your thoughts on um, why that has been so. Um, and Also just regarding the future of the community and your thoughts about how to grow it and keep it exciting and fresh and so forth. Um, to deal with the timing issues of the live show, which is it's a big problem for me. I can't tell you
Right.
what time I woke up. Um, One idea might be, hey, I was going to say, what an incredible freaking resource this is. Like, I could ask questions of Mike Feinberg about China and Chinese counterintelligence. I mean, that, like, if there was ever like a paradigm case of like what's great about the internet, that's it. If we could sort of address the timing issue, like I've got 5 questions right now that I'd love to ask Mike Feinberg. um, is there a way, maybe would it be useful if we could submit questions offline, or in advance, and then you could just sort of dip into the questions, rather than a lull, or in addition to a lull, you could use the lulls strategically.
Oh
But
no,
like,
the lulls are important. The lulls
okay,
are ways of forcing people onto the screen, and the dramatic tension associated with the lull is actually important.
yeah, I have read that like Abraham Lincoln and a lot of great leaders in the past have used lulls as a strategic tool to mobilize groups. Um, but okay, keep the lulls. But like, for example, if I listen to a lot of podcasts, so um, a lot of them have like a call-in feature, where you can pre-record a voicemail, like, "Hey, I've got a question for Mike Feinberg," or send an email, some
This
type
is a
of
great idea. And the answer is um, uh, I will open a line of communication for exactly that purpose, and have a list of pending questions for all of my co-hosts, so that when, the next time Minna comes on, we can give Minna all the Minna questions that have showed up. And the next time Mike comes on, we can give Mike all the Mike questions. That's a great idea, and it's very easy to set up, and I will set it up.
that's that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. I've got many questions. I've got Holly questions. I've got Mike questions. It's just that I'm usually asleep when.
Yes, of course. Oh, Fred is on the West Coast, for those who don't know. So, a couple of thoughts in response to your uh, point. And John says in the chat that it sometimes looks like I'm starved for content. Dude, I'm always starved for content. And uh, like what you see is what you get. If it looks like I'm starved for content, you should be lucky I'm not showing up here with a distended content belly. Um, Uh, all right. A couple things. The first is you raise a really interesting, how do we scale, how does this group maintain itself with so little content moderation? We've never had to throw somebody out. Um, the terms of discussion are always civilized. There have been a couple of instances where certain individuals don't get along. I've never had to intervene in that. Um, and so the first answer is charging money
Yeah.
matters. And if you make something, um, uh, if you make something free and anybody can show up, the costs of trolling go way, way down. If you make people put even a little bit of skin in the game, the trolls will go elsewhere. Now, does that work at the size of the bulwark? No, probably not, because some people are going to pay $30 to troll the bulwark. But we're a small target in that regard. And there will come a time where we have a content moderation problem that we have to deal with. But I don't think we're near that now. I think we could triple or quadruple the size of this before we had any real problems. Um, uh, how, but that is one question um, that you get. And we don't know the answer to it. How big could the Greek chorus get without without needing to police it? Um, will I police it if I have to? Yes. Um, do I want to do everything to keep it self-policing? Yeah. I'm going to take a pretty hands-off approach. And the day that, uh, some Nazis show up in the Greek chorus and you guys have to deal with it, or some tankies show up and, blame the Putin stuff on America and NATO, you guys will handle it. And if somebody needs to be banned and their money returned, it's okay. I don't need every subscription. Money actually does matter here, and it's an expensive hobby to troll people to have to pay for it. Also, there's another factor that's important, which is it's pretty hard to troll anonymously here because, like, I have back data on most of you, like you can show up with just a first name or with a fake name. But, you have a credit card transaction. And, if somebody were really misbehaving, I would out them. If somebody showed up here and did Nazi shit, um, I would cheerfully say, okay, here's what I know about that person. And, you know, I don't collect data on people, but Substack sure does. So I have it. And um, am I threatening to do that? No. Do I think that trolls instinctively know that um, there are better waters in which to fish? People, stuff where you can do stuff more anonymously. I think people kind of know that instinctively. And then finally, um, there is a culture is sticky thing. It has a way of a culture in which a whole bunch of people get together in a chat and are nice to each other and thoughtful and have important things to say to each other. Um, that's actually
And funny
not that much
sometimes.
fun to disrupt. It's uh, you can yell in it, and we've had people who did that early and in lieu of fun, people who would Zoom bomb us, and but uh, it doesn't actually work that well in disrupting a community of people who are going to be just like, oh, shut up. Um, and so we have people who show up and troll for example, the Lawfare lives on YouTube. But then they get bored and stop. And so I do think size matters, staying at a size where you're not trying to appeal to everybody, imposing some costs so that the people who are participating are people who actually want to spend a marginal dollar to be part of a community, and having a sort of self-enforcing don't be an asshole rule among a group of people um, who are responsible for policing their own community. And I don't know what the maximum size you can have that works at, but look, one of the things that I'm not trying to do is grow so fast that we find that out quickly. And the Silicon Valley people are really into exponential growth. I'm not. um, Exponential growth takes you from governable territory to ungovernable territory very, very quickly. And I like governable territory. I think territories that have their own traditions, and you cannot maintain tradition in the face of exponential growth. I like very slow linear growth. So those are some thoughts in answer to your question.
Thank you.
Richard, good morning. And it's
Well,
Richard sporting a Witoad hat,
well, I
which
and
I'm going to grab a screenshot of and text to Anna Bauer while we speak.
okay. You know, they're one of the great uses of the Witoad hat is to hide a really bad hair day, which is for me, basically when my hair gets longer than about half an inch. That's, so, anyway, I'm here to just to be appreciative. So, one of the things that I keep thinking about is you you know I think about a lot of people that I disagree with and that I just end up not wanting to have anything to do with, and um, and I think about, but there are a lot of people there are some people I disagree with that I don't shy away from, and the reason why is because um, they're good faith interlocutors. And I think one of the things I really appreciate about you, Ben, and about Lawfare is that there is it is a place for people to uh, have discussions and to disagree in good faith without without seeing the other person as just a really awful uh, human being, which of course is all over the internet, um, and um, and so that's one thing that I really appreciate about the work that you've done and what you're doing, what you continue to do at Lawfare. The other thing is that I appreciate the rigor that I find on Lawfare, and that also that I encounter on this show with a lot of the people that you have on. I've learned so much between In Lieu of Fun and Dog Shirt TV, and of course Lawfare and so on. Just because you know I've learned a lot about how complex the world really is, um, and I've learned I learned a lot about uh, what I don't know, and what who is an expert and what an expert might ask. Part of that is just anybody who's gone through a PhD in, especially in the humanities, maybe in other fields as well. You learn that if you're trained well, you're learned not to put up with a lot of bullshit, and and unfortunately, there's not enough. I feel like there's not enough well, critical thinking is what, for short, around. Uh, but I come to, Dogshire TV or Lawfare or whatever for that. And I think that that's, unfortunately, it's too rare. But I think what you've been doing is just exemplary.
Well, thank you. It's very kind of you. You know, and it goes to two things that, have been really important conceptual ideas behind lawfare. Uh, one of which is was organic to the project, and the other was a decision. So the organic one was the rigor that, we founded Lawfare partly because the three founders, myself, Bobby Chesney, and Jack Goldsmith, all felt like ironically, we are thought of as a left of center site now, but the origin story was we were all people who were um, in one way or another right of the center of gravity of debate in the late Bush administration, early Obama administration on issues of counterterrorism and executive power in that context. We weren't the far right of that conversation, which was the John Hughes of the world, but we were people who believed that the executive branch needed to be able to do certain things and that Congress had authorized certain things, and and that the human rights and academic left communities were too dominant in the conversation and were unrigorous in a lot of their thinking. And so part of the animating spirit of lawfare was to inject a certain amount of rigor, to critique some of that stuff, to make arguments for, it was really for the Obama administration's exercises of executive authority, because the site was founded in 2010, which was the early Obama administration. Um, and and specifically with reference to the idea that, hey, it's not going to be so easy to close Guantanamo Bay, right? Hey, it's easy to say don't blow up terrorists with drone strikes in the Fatah region in Pakistan, but let's get the law right and let's talk about the uh, strategic alternatives and value and negative value of these things in a serious way. And so the original concept of lawfare was really about providing a fairer and more rigorous analysis that was mostly a response to the left. And that orientation continued through the Snowden revelations, through a lot of different things. And it was really until Trump, I use the word guardedly, radicalized a lot of the national security community, and we became very interested in things like counterintelligence authorities, which we had always been interested in for other reasons, but the public prominence of those issues became very substantial. So the rigor is organic to the project really from the beginning. It was a perception of a lack of rigor in certain areas that um, uh, caused the site to come into existence. The the other thing you mentioned was a decision. And that was, we started the site to represent our views. There was no thought to, should we have our opponents on the site in the beginning. It was, hey, they have the New York Times editorial page, and, they have access to every law review in the country. Let's have one place where we take government arguments seriously and where we try to anticipate where courts are likely to go with this stuff in an informative way rather than say should. Um, Within a year of starting Lawfare, we realized that it would be better to host the debate than simply use it as a platform for our views. And that was a response to the fact that the thirst for a more serious conversation was dramatic. And so, we and I particularly made a kind of strategic decision that the site would be a better site if it hosted the debate, hosted the documents, hosted real conversation rather than our side of the conversation. And that's the real origin story of lawfare. And so there still are people who think of it, particularly in the human rights community, as a right-wing site designed to attack them. And it has long not been that. Most of them now publish with us. Some of them still hate the name, but it's been a wild journey, and I love it that those are the two things that you notice about it, or two of the things that you notice about it. Hey, we are already over time. John
Thank you
Hawkins.
for Lawfare. Thank you for DSTV. Thank you for everything. It really, I
Thank you
didn't
for
get around to
joining
saying that.
us.
I'm sorry.
And look, guys, John Hawkinson said we are starved for content, and I often look panicked, but it took me about 10 seconds of lull to get a great panel on the screen. No starvation was had by any content eating organism. And folks, we're going to be back on Monday. I have some great guests lined up for next week. I am really not starved for content, and we're going to have the book club. So you know, be nice to each other, keep the faith, and have a great weekend.